Today, we're taking a look at one of the newer Microsoft Teams certified devices, the Poly CCX 500. The 500 sitting right here is the one of three new CCXs that Poly is releasing. You've got the 400, the 500, and the 600. We're going to be doing a little bit of an overview as well as a demo of using this device in a Microsoft Teams call. And we'll be going over all the different components and features of the device itself, what it's like to set it up, and how to manage it from within the Microsoft Teams Admin Center. Let's take a look. Taking a look at some of the components that come with the CCX 500 desk phone, we've got the phone itself. Now, one of the first things I want to call out about this phone is the form factor. You can purchase the CCX 500 in two different SKUs. One includes the actual handset component. The other is without the handset. So you would imagine just the speakerphone and the screen itself standing by itself without this whole left-hand portion or an actual handset. So you can get it in either way. Clearly we're looking at the handset model here, and we'll be putting that together. As we look at the device, we can see that we have this bottom section is all speakerphone, and Poly prides itself on its acoustics and audio experience. So we have a very large portion of this front-facing part of the device that is the speakerphone itself. Down at the bottom, we've got a mute on and off button that lights up right at the bottom, easy to access. You've got volume up and down right there as well. And then the display itself. This is a 5-inch touch display. The device runs Android 9. And if we flip this thing around, we've got a series of ports in here that we'll take a look at. First, you can see our handset port itself over here on the right. And then as we look in here, we've got a couple different, we've got an optional power port. Now this device uses PoE, so if you've got PoE capabilities, then you don't need to plug in the AC adapter. Otherwise, that is where you'd plug in the optional power component. You've got a gig Ethernet cable for connecting straight to your machine, or to the LAN for Ethernet coming in. And we'll also see a headset jack over on the far right there as well. There are also a couple of USB ports on the side of the device. You've got your regular USB and then your USB-C ports. So one of each of those, depending on the type of device that you might want to plug in. So you can put a headset this way, or you can connect a USB headset on the side. You've also got your Kensington lock hole there to make sure no devices go walking off. And then these two slots here are where we will end up putting the prop sitting right back here, so that or the kickstand, if you will, to keep the phone standing up straight. So that is the actual phone device, the compute portion itself. Again, this would be that quote-unquote kickstand. These slide right into the back, and then that allows the phone to stand up at a particular angle. You can have the phone at a more elevated vertical stance if it's plugged in this way. If you were to flip it around, you'll let the phone kind of sit back a little bit more and relax a little more horizontal. And then finally, we've got the headset itself, or the handset itself, I should say. And it is a handset. You hold it to your ear and it plugs into the phone, and you talk into it and hear things from it. So yeah, good stuff there. All right, to piece these all together, pretty straightforward. We're gonna prop this up like so. Just slides right into the back there. Okay. And then we will take our handset cable, and we are just going to plug that in right underneath there. There we go. And then we've got a PoE cable that we'll be plugging into the LAN in the back. But as we flip that around, you just clean that screen up a little bit. There we go. You can see the device all put together. And again, we have this in a more upright vertical stance. All right, let's get it powered on and look at setting it up. Okay, so we are powering the device on after having put together the CCX 500. Super complex. Plug in the handset, plug in the PoE cable at the back, and attach the little kickstand to the back so that the phone stands up. And once you've gone through that brain-busting process, I'm being sarcastic here, super easy to do and very quick. You plug the PoE cable in and the device powers up. So right now we go through a couple little screens during the boot up. The CCX 500 attempts to join the network via DHCP, and then we're presented with our Microsoft Teams sign-in screen. However, before we get there, we will get presented with a license agreement if we are powering this up for the first time that we do need to accept. Okay, so before we can actually get to signing in and all that good stuff, when powering the device up for the first time, we do need to accept the license agreement. You may scroll through this in all of its glory, all the way down to the end. A lot of words in here, and then you can accept it. Oops. I just said next a little quickly there, but that previous screen is where you choose the language. It defaults, at least this build defaulted to English United States, and that's exactly where I want to keep it. Here, this is a little hard to see because of the glare going on. I need to get the display to be a little bit less bright for the video, and we'll do that in a second. But you need to choose the mode, the profile, the provisioning profile that you want to put it in. We've got Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business. Because we're living in the future, we're gonna keep Microsoft Teams in place. Say next. Yes, we do want to continue to set this phone in Microsoft Teams mode. Thank you for double checking. So here we go, we launch Microsoft Teams. Now you have the sign-in screen here, which we'll get to in a moment. You can also see that we've got June 1st up top. This is not my time, but it is defaulted to GMT, which we'll see in a second. So before we sign in, let's go to our settings with this little gear icon and take a look at what we can do from the settings view and make any changes we want to make. Language, I skipped over that really briefly, but as you can see, there are a number of options here. It goes way down. There's a lot in here, and we're leaving it defaulted to English United States because that's where I'm at. Then your date and time. The date's correct for me, but it's in GMT by default, and I don't want GMT, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab New York, because that would be the closest to where my time zone is in here. And we'll leave the SNTP servers and the time format as is. When we say back, it'll save our settings there. If we go back in, there we go, we are at the right time. Now, if we go to display, this is where we get to kind of take that brightness down a little bit. This will make it easier to see the screen on the recording. Although I should note, this is for video recording purposes. The brightness is actually quite optimal for the naked eye when not recording. We'll leave it at this dimmer backlight for now so that we can go ahead and finish recording this way. You'll notice there's also screensaver options in here. I'm gonna turn this on. And you'll notice that the screensaver background is a desk clock, and that's fine. We'll leave it as is, but here we can decide when the screensaver should actually time out and the backlight should time out and the screensaver should come on is what I meant to say there. And I'm gonna leave it at the default of 15 minutes. Please note that if you do not change this to screensaver, then the screen does still time out after 15 minutes and it's just black. And you walk up and you tap it and everything lights back up, but it saves on energy that way. So when you go back, it says, do you want to save? And I'm going to say, yes, I do want to save. Under our headset, we can do hook switch mode, Plantronics EHS or regular mode. I'm going to leave that alone. And then echo cancellation can be turned on as well. Next up, we've got Bluetooth. You can turn on Bluetooth and then attach or connect a headset or USB device to, or Bluetooth device through here and then manage those devices. I'm not gonna mess with that now though. And then accessibility, lots of good accessibility options. If we were to toggle this on, you have high contrast mode, large text, color correction, and then your correction mode. I'm gonna toggle that back off. and then debug. Now this is the non-admin debug settings, and in here you can access logging, you can do a screen capture, and you can reboot your phone. Just different ways to kind of do some troubleshooting and testing if the end user is needing to call into the help desk maybe. The About screen gives us all of our versions of firmware, the IP address, your MAC address, the Teams version, all that good stuff that you may need to provide to either a help desk agent or Poly if you're calling in for support for some reason. And then admin only. Now you do have to enter a password here. And the default password, when it hasn't been changed, oops, let's go back, is 456. So we enter that, and now you'll notice there's a few different options. Debug is one of them. This is a different debug than the previous one. We've still got logging and screen capture utilities, but we've also got the reset custom config and reset to factory defaults. I'm not going to do either of those now. There's the web user interface. I'm going to turn that on in a moment, but when I do, that enables the web server and reboots the phone. So we'll do that right before we're ready to log into Teams. Network configuration, you've got DHCP, your IP address, you can manage all that fun stuff right in there. And then you can change your admin password above or switch to a different profile, Teams versus Skype. I'm not gonna change my admin password and we're not gonna change out of Skype. So let's go back here, and since we're now gone through all of our settings and we know what's available to us, we can go ahead and put the web user interface on. Why I like to do that is because sometimes it's helpful to log into the device via IP address and take a look at the more advanced full-featured settings list from the web interface. So we'll say okay, we go back and it says, do you want to save? And when we say yes, it reboots the phone. We'll go ahead and restart the camera when we're ready to sign into Teams. All right, we are back and ready to sign into Microsoft Teams. So we click the sign in button. Now you can sign into the Intune portal a couple different ways here. You can either tap on the screen and bring up the on-screen keyboard and type it all in that way, and that's all fine and good. I always prefer to say sign in from another device. This brings up a URL that we'll go to where we input this code, and we can then sign on with a actual desktop or laptop keyboard. Much easier than, in my opinion, typing it on these little smaller screens. So I'm gonna go over and do that right now, and we'll get signed in. Okay, now that I have signed in on the other machine, it is going to prompt me for a security code because I have MFA set up on the account. And as that comes in, we will input that here. Just got it on my phone. And click verify. And that will finish signing us into the Intune portal. Awesome, we are signed into Microsoft Teams. This is the customary starting screen that always displays when you sign into Teams on a new device. We'll say got it. And then we see the familiar Microsoft Teams interface for our devices. You've got calls, calendar, and voicemail all at the bottom. Got your call history set up in there, all of your calendar items, your one-click join button for meetings. Go over to voicemail, you can see your voicemails that are in there and play them, as well as identifying who it was that called. If we go back over to calls, you'll see you've got the dial pad. When you click on the call button, you can either search for people by name within your org, or you can click on the dial pad itself and enter in a number to call. Notice it started in speakerphone because we didn't have the handset off, but if I pick the handset up, we no longer hear the speakerphone. And then if you hang that up, of course it hangs up the call and you don't hear the dial tone at all. So that's where you can go to make a call. You'll notice this little button up here at the top next to the search button. If we tap that, that is actually our parked call. So if you have call parking enabled, in your environment in Microsoft Teams, then you'd be able to pick up a parked call on this device by tapping that button and inputting the code for the parked call. Since we don't actually have a parked call waiting, let's go ahead and cancel that. Now, this is all our main interface for calling, right? Calls, calendar, voicemail, how we join meetings, all that good stuff. You'll notice up here that we've got a number of options as well that are familiar to us Teams users. You can set your status to be something else. You can set a status message, hot desking. Then there's these settings here that we'll get to in a second. And if there's any other orgs that you are a guest in, you can join them down below as well. We click on settings, you got dark theme. I'm not gonna switch to dark theme because unlike most people in this world, I abhor dark theme. Profile, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate mail for that. Come over here and look at your profile. Calling, going over to calling, we've got our calling rules and behaviors. You can configure call forwarding. You can turn that off, choose where to forward to, simultaneous ring. You can manage your voicemail right here as well, your voicemail greeting. And then we can choose to block calls with no caller ID if this is allowed by policy. So going back, we've also got our about. Again, this gives us all the information about our versions, good stuff there. And then we have company portal, reporting an issue to actually submit a support issue there. We can sign out for this user. And if we need to access any of the device specific settings, this is all Teams stuff, right? But if we go to device settings, this brings us back to that menu we looked at in the beginning. So here's where we can manage all of our other local device settings from on the machine. Since we already went through that, I'm not gonna bother going through that now, but let's go ahead and jump out of here. What I would like to do at this time is actually get a Teams meeting going and record the audio experience. Before we jump into the actual demonstration of the call, we are going to take a look at connecting our Blackwire headset. And again, this is a wired device. So here you will see we've got our Poly Blackwire headset. I will do another video on this. But for now, we're just demoing using a wired headset with the Poly CCX 500 and how the 3 different calling capabilities perform in a call. So this is USB-C, we've got USB-C, USB-A, and we just plug this right in, and there we go. Okay, I have now set up a meeting, so let's go over to the calendar. And right up top, you'll see we've got CCX Demo 500. Now I'm gonna click join and we'll go through the different audio experiences and what they sound like. Okay, I have now joined the meeting on my phone and I am using speakerphone. Notice that with the headset plugged in, the audio started on the headset and I had to actually click the speakerphone. And then of course, if you are muted, you will see that you are muted on the Teams interface. Looking down here, we also can see the mute button at the very bottom. Unmute. Now unmuted. Now, if we want to switch from the speakerphone, we can see what the audio sounds like when I pick up the handset. Okay, we are now recording audio through the handset. And this is what it sounds like to use the handset on the CCX 500. Now I'm going to push the headset button and put on the headset and hang up the handset so that we can hear audio coming in through the Blackwire headset plugged in via wire via USB to the CCX 500. Okay, we are now using the Blackwire headset from Poly. It is plugged in again via USB into the CCX 500. And I have now demonstrated joining the meeting from the CCX 500 with one touch join
and using speakerphone, handset, as well as a USB headset, all from the same device. And we've also covered the muting and unmuting functionality of the device. We can attempt to add other people to the call or see the participants list, and all those regular call control functionalities that we'd expect in a meeting from a device like this. All right, that's been a Microsoft Teams meeting join and audio demo with the Poly CCX 500.
Okay, for managing the Poly CCX 500, we come to the Microsoft Teams Admin Center, which is clearly where we are. We go down to the Devices section and Phones. Right now you only see phones and collaboration bars. This is clearly a phone. Eventually you'll have the Microsoft Teams rooms in here as well. But for now we go to Phones. As you can see, I've tested with various phones over time, haven't removed them, so they show up in here. But we're looking for the CCX 500. And looking at our models over here, we can see there's the CCX 500, our Poly. It shows us online. As soon as we signed into the phone and it registered with Intune, it showed up in this admin portal for us to manage. We have the IP address here as well. If I click on the device, we get a number of things that we can do with it, as well as looking at the details. We can restart the device right up top, or download the logs if we need them for support purposes. We can refresh the details if we feel like things have changed. And then we can see when it was last seen, or what the name of the device is. Looking down here at our health, we see that everything is up to date. So you could update your firmware here if there was firmware to update. You just check it, and there would be an option to update it by clicking over here. Since everything's up to date, that's not really a concern. We also can see if our Teams app is up to date, as well as all the other apps and agents that are installed on it. So if we need to schedule or upgrade a firmware, that's on the screen right here. Going over to details, again, we get a bit more information. If we need to add notes in, there could be notes added. We've got our serial number, the IP address, asset tag if one was added in. And the history shows the history of things that we did. Obviously, I updated the firmware already. The firmware failed to update first, and then this was actually the secondary item that happened. But the first time we tried to update firmware, it completed. So you can kind of see what happened and get a sense of where the device is at and what's been tried with it. And that's it. That's where you come to manage a Poly CCX 500 or any other Microsoft Teams native phone device within the Microsoft Teams Admin Center.